It was a busy week for President Trump and a frenzied week for everyone who hates him.
This was a blatant submission to a genuine foe.
I don't think it's extreme to use that treason word.
When the media think about Russia, all they think about is election meddling.
The sinking of a tour boat in a Missouri lake.
There was a family of 11, and they lost 9 members of that family.
Progress with North Korea on its nuclear program.
We can't do one thing until we see North Korea respond to their promise to denuclearize.
The $40 million commissioner, that's Roger Goodell, must now make a stand. First time kneeling, out for game. Second time kneeling, out for season, no pay.
NFL players who essentially tell the team owners, the bosses, that here's the way it's going to be. And I just wonder who's running this.
We're here in Kansas City to rally for Brent Welder. We're going to flip this seat red in November.
Oh, I love this song. Okay, go.
Never heard it, but it's a beautiful skyline.
It is a beautiful skyline. Isn't it? Is that a live sunrise?
Yes. Yes, it is. We do live TV, Abby.
Oh, are we doing that right now?
We are. This is actually on TV right now. True. For real. Welcome to your
Welcome back, Griff.
Thank you.
Oh, it's good to have you.
Excited to be back. Abby and I were just talking. The last time I was hosting this show, Rascal, my dog, was sitting in my lap, and my wife and 2 daughters were sitting here. It's Father's Day weekend, and a lot of news has happened since then.
You're still a father.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me check with Rascal. Rascal, hurry back.
You really do have the cutest dog in the world, besides mine, of course.
I was going to say, you're portraying yours.
George, good morning to all of you, though. Happy Saturday. And there's a lot of news to get to. And a story that we were following so closely yesterday. It is a heartbreaking one. We want to get to it right now. We want to start with a Fox News alert. A survivor in the horrific duck boat crash loses 9 family members, including her children. She says the boat's captain told them not to grab life jackets because they would not need them.
Said, Lord, just let me die. Let me die. I said, I can't keep drowning. And I said, Jesus, please keep me. Just keep me so I can get to my children. Keep me, Lord.
The owner of the Ride the Ducks tour company in Missouri telling CBS News that the boat should not have been in the water during severe storms. And to another Fox News alert now. A massive manhunt is underway right now for the person who killed George H.W. Bush's former cardiologist, Dr. Mark Houseneck, gunned down in broad daylight as he rode his bike to work by a gunman also on a bike. Police are now trying to find out if it was a targeted attack. It all happened less than a mile from Houston Methodist Hospital where he was working. Bush 41 remembering his doctor as a, quote, fantastic cardiologist and a good man, saying, quote, I will always be grateful for his exceptional, compassionate care. Also this, a suspected cop killer gunned down by police after a 3-day manhunt overnight. Justin Wakey, killed on Hawaii's Big Island after shooting a responding officer several times in the chest. That police sergeant is in stable condition. A woman with a fugitive also shot, and 2 other accomplices were arrested during the traffic stop. Wakey's accused of murdering Officer Bronson Kaliloa. He now leaves behind a wife and 3 children. That is so heartbreaking. And there's this, Socialists Unite. Democratic congressional candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez rallying with Bernie Sanders in Kansas. The pair boasting their radical ideas. They are now mainstream. The excitement apparently too much for Ocasio-Cortez, who appears to have her political colors mixed up.
We're here in Kansas City to rally for Brent Welder. We're going to flip this seat red in November.
It is the latest slip-up for the 28-year-old who recently said unemployment is low because people are working 2 jobs. And those are some of your headlines this morning. Not some fun headlines, that is for sure.
Dorothy Grant Toto, the socialists are coming to Wichita.
Yeah.
So basically all you can say about that one. It'll be fascinating to see how that plays.
But boy, what a week it has been. I was here on Monday morning when all went down in Helsinki. Yesterday was Friday, and now there's another summit that's going to happen between Vladimir Putin and President Trump. I mean, amazing what happens in just 5 days' time.
It has been a week. You were here on Monday, I was in on Friday, and on weeks like this, Trump goes full MAGA, like on full auto. And the folks who love him even more because they see the overwhelming reaction of the hyperbole and the sort of liberal tears of the elite bedwetters who can't handle the fact that he's doubling down on his policies and in critiques. One of those, again, happening last night. He's seized the way the media has responded to Putin, the Putin summit, the second Putin summit that you just talked about, Abby. And he tweeted this last night. He said, "I got severely criticized by the fake news media for being too nice to President Putin. In the old days, they would call it diplomacy. If I was loud and vicious, I would have been criticized for being too tough. Remember when they said I was too tough on Chairman Kim? Hypocrites! !" So he's saying, "Hey guys,
you look back on history, and you are the expert here, Griff. But I remember back in 2001 when George W. Bush was trying to figure out the relationship with Putin, and at one point he said he connected to a part of his soul. Yeah. Remember that and the criticism that he got, and then of course we all remember when Obama was over there with Medvedev and whispered in his ear saying, "Once this election's over, I'll have more flexibility." So he is right in the sense that every president in recent history has tried to figure it out with Vladimir Putin, and he's a tough one to figure out. Where I will disagree with him on that tweet, though, is some of the criticism was not that he was too nice to Vladimir Putin. It was that he wasn't strong enough standing up for his intelligence community.
Right, and we see that, but I was just yesterday in South Carolina near Myrtle Beach and talking to a gentleman on the beach there walking in the morning, and he spoke directly to what the president tweeted and what Kellyanne Conway was saying last night, which is this is the expected outrage that we've come to see every day. Here's what Kellyanne Conway said last night.
For a media that is so precise about the language they always want to hear from everyone who works here, boy, do they just toss words into the salad bowl. They are, I think, physiologically incapable of finishing a sentence or addressing any issue without mentioning Donald Trump's name 5 or 10 times. The obsessive outrage has been mainstreamed and regularized. It's not just that the outrage and the who can out crazy the next on cable TV has been accepted, it's now expected.
No, so the president has called out the fake news media as the enemy of the people because only the most partisan Democrats believe the collusion illusion after 18 months of what's gone on. And you go out and talk to folks in Middle America, you wait for them to use the word Russia, and you might as well just park yourself for dinner for 2.5 hours. Because they're looking at what's happening in the media, and they go, they're not even remotely connected to what we care about.
I think they've also lost where we are with this Russian investigation. So there's a recent poll that shows how important the American people feel about Russia. The number one on that list, immigration at 22%, but then you go all the way to the bottom, and it says... what is it? Russia situation. So they don't even know how to describe it. Right?
Situation with Russia.
And it just has a star next to it because the number is so low.
It's in asterisks. So this is Gallup. Non-economic problems. Economic problems, frankly, lower than 22 if you keep it there. Immigration, dissatisfaction with government. And if you were to watch CNN or MSNBC, you'd think it was Russia at like 90%. Mm-hmm. Russia rates in asterisks. If you read the article, not enough people spoke of Russia for it to register as a number. Think about that! Turn on every channel. Open the failing New York Times this morning. It's all Russia. It's immigration, dissatisfaction with government, so those are probably liberals, race relations, unifying the country, lack of respect for each other. And there's just like 19 other issues when you look at the poll, and then you get to asterisks.
It just shows the disconnect, Griff, between what the American people, what the core of this country cares so much about and what they're concerned about, and what the focus of the media is. We've seen that from day one, but it only feels like it's gotten worse.
And what that poll doesn't really get to, and the gentleman I was talking to yesterday represents these middle Americans, as you're talking about, Pete, that say, let's give President Trump a chance. Let's wait and see if his tactics, his strategy will play. His Helsinki summit, which was viewed by so many as a failure, and then doubled down, maybe even a rougher week, because now he's inviting Putin back. The gentleman I talked to and the people represented in this poll are saying, let's see what happens with North Korea. Let's see what happens with Russia. Maybe it's going to benefit us in ways we can't even imagine. We'll find out.
Yeah. Well, President Biden.
Well, he
former Vice President Biden, who wants to be President Biden.
He may very well run in 2020.
And President Trump says would be his dream candidate. Was down talking to a major Latino rights group yesterday, talking about illegal immigration, talking about the darkest moments in our history. Remember, the poll we just showed shows that Americans care about immigration, mostly those who support the president. This is what he had to say about the zero-tolerance policy. Former Vice President Biden.
grotesque lies about immigrants, about crime, about cost to the community. This administration's policy that literally ripped babies from the arms of their mothers and fathers. It's one of the darkest moments in our history. Not only is it a national shame, it tarnishes the very idea of America and diminishes our standing in the world.
You've spent so much time at the border, Griff, covering this so closely.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, so the problem with Vice President Biden's comments is that the whole McAllen, Texas Center, you remember the outrage, babies being torn from their mother's arms? I was there for this show reporting in McAllen just weeks ago, and that started under President Obama and Vice President Biden in reaction to the 2014 surge. That same processing center of the Border Patrol was created in 2014 that's in operation today. The Border Patrol tells you now one single baby has been ripped from their mother, as reported, and so he's really choosing to forget the recent history that this began under President Obama and Biden. And when he is speaking to LULAC, who, by the way, the League of United Latin American Citizens sent people down for the protest that I was at in McAllen, and they were outraged, and I asked many of them, I said, but what about the fact that it's the exact same processing center, the same family separation process, with the exception of the zero tolerance difference? But for Biden to say that it's the darkest moment, that's a bridge too far.
But also makes me realize that he's thinking very, very seriously about running for president. I can just imagine in my mind you describing this, a debate between President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, and Trump saying, well, when did this all begin? What was going on under your watch? You can see that back and forth already playing out. So this comedian who I actually don't know very well, but most of you know her from the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where she took the time to attack Sarah Sanders, and she did a parody of ICE. I found it pretty sick, but she uses this time to compare ICE to ISIS. Watch a bit of this.
It's popular nowadays to say ICE is bad, but there's no better representation of American values right now than ISIS. And as an equal opportunity employer, we accept all levels of experience and education, from low to very low, and actively welcome those with diagnosed anger issues. Take it from me. No organization is better than ISIS.
So, you know, what is very sad about this is that you're impugning law enforcement officers that work at ICE or any other federal law enforcement agency. And so while there is certainly a debate, and we've seen a handful of Democratic senators that want to get rid of ICE, that was created in 2003, this really just impugns the character of people that sign up for service.
Yeah, if you're going to we can talk about making changes that are beneficial for this country, but attacking ICE and the work that they do, they're just being told what to do from the top. I mean, these are very much patriots in this country and doing a lot of good work to help keep this country safe.
Let us know what you think.
You're silent.
My face says, you don't even need to comment on it. Netflix attaches themselves to that, by the way. If they're comfortable with that, they should maybe comment on it. I mean, ultimately, comparing, the left wants open borders. She wants open borders. If you don't want ICE, then you don't want a country.
All right, the DOJ had a midnight deadline to release that controversial FISA order authorizing the FBI to spy on Carter Page and the Trump campaign to Judicial Watch. What do you think happened? Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton joins us next.
And a cat at bat, a feline storming onto the field, disrupting a Major League Baseball game. The wild video.
Wow.
There she or he is.
What's new, pussycat? Whoa, 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 whoa. What's new, pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Judicial Watch demanding answers about FISA warrants from the DOJ. And the documents are just coming in now. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, who requested those documents, joins us now with an update. Tom, thanks for being here this morning. Okay, so from what I'm told, they had to meet a Friday deadline. They could have emailed you the PDF documents of what they have. Instead, they've chosen another path. What is it?
Yeah, we asked where they were, and we were told by lawyers for the FBI they FedExed them to us. So
they're in the mail.
Get them on Monday.
So they're in the mail.
You know,
So
the FBI can figure out the Russians hacked the DNC without looking at the servers, but they can't figure out how to email documents to judicial
Well, no,
officers.
I have a feeling this has nothing to do with figuring things out and everything to do with slow walking. I mean, they never wanted to give these documents up. What could these documents reveal? We've been wanting to look at these FISA applications. You know, are they going to be heavily redacted? Are they going to show us something? What do you expect?
Well, we'll see what we get. I expect they'll be redacted. The question is how many redactions will there be? What will they hide from the American people? Remember, going back, this is the Carter Page FISA warrants that were the Clinton DNC dossier was used to justify in a dishonest way to the FISA courts, it's been alleged. Remember, no Clinton DNC dossier, no FISA warrants. Frankly, no Clinton DNC dossier, no special counsel. So the corruption of the FISA court process may be exposed by these disclosures. No one has seen these warrants, at least publicly. Maybe the congressional intelligence folks have, but the American public haven't had access to these warrants. So it's important that they be as much fully disclosed as possible. And if they're not, the president should intervene and start declassifying materials.
Yeah, so I mean, are you expecting pages with a lot of writing on them or pages with a lot of black Sharpie through them to include references to the dossier which triggered all of this? Because people forget how partisan the origin of this investigation has been. And as a result, the tainted nature of a FISA warrant on someone like Carter Page, who, by the way, still hasn't been charged with a crime after being surveilled by our government. So how do you expect answers, or is this an exercise in forcing the government to come clean?
I suspect we'll get more answers. We won't get all the answers we want, so the fight will continue. But it's a major development in the sense that we're finally going to see warrants they at one point had refused to confirm or deny existed, and now we're going to see at least parts of them. And it's going to be up, again, I think, to the president to order the FBI and the DOJ to stop the gamesmanship with the withholding classified information, because I don't think the agencies can be trusted to, in a fair and balanced way, to use a turn of phrase, to release this information.
Tom, who's playing the games right now? The Attorney General recused himself. President highly critical of him for that move. Who is slow walking? Is it Rod Rosenstein? Is it Christopher Wray? Who is saying, we're not going to email you these documents, even though law says that a FOIA application means you get to see them?
Well, you know, it's hard to know in this legal process who makes decisions as to why documents are emailed versus FedEx. But more importantly, the redactions, I think, are done at the highest levels, and the leadership of both the DOJ and FBI need to be held to account for any inappropriate redactions or over-redactions. You know, and Mr. Mueller also is responsible as well. In our experience, a lot of materials are withheld not necessarily for classified reasons, but because there are ongoing law enforcement investigations. So I can expect the out-of-control Mueller special counsel operation to be used as an excuse to withhold information as well.
Well, in a world full of a lot of heat, I appreciate that Judicial Watch brings actual light to the situation and brings documents forward. Tom Fitton, keep us posted. Come back to the program when you get the documents. FedEx, I'm sure an intern will be camped outside the door prepared to get the document. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, the NFL now putting off their national anthem policy that they said was in place. And President Trump, well, he's got something to say about it. Dan Bongino reacts live coming up. Plus, atheists forced a restaurant to cancel its Sunday church discounts. Now an update from the owner. Coming up next.
Can I get a name, man? Feels like the Holy Ghost running through ya when I play.
Good morning. Some quick headlines for you. Iran preparing to launch a massive cyber attack on the U.S. and its allies, NBC News reports. The attack could target infrastructure and healthcare and technology companies. Experts say nothing is imminent, but precautions are being taken. In a Putin-backed plan for a Ukraine referendum rejected by the White House, Russia's ambassador to the United States claiming President Trump and Putin discussed the proposal, but was quickly rebuked. The 4-year conflict with Russia-backed separatists has killed more than 10,000 people. Meanwhile, the Pentagon plans to send $200 million in military to aid Ukraine. Abby?
Griff, thank you. All right, on to this now. An Ohio restaurant facing backlash after offering a discount to churchgoers. Starters Cafe in Ohio, looking to stir up some local business, offered any congregation a 10% discount if they brought in their church bulletin. But some members of the community, they lashed out, altering the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which then threatened legal action against that cafe. Well, that cafe owner, Justin Watson, and his attorney, Jason Philibom, are here with us right now. Good morning, gentlemen. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
All right, so Justin, explain to our viewers what happened here.
Well, basically what we did is we came across and we posted a promotion where we offered a 10% discount to anybody of any denomination, any church, anything, for 10% off their brunch on Sunday afternoons, and that includes now any other nonprofit or civic organization as well.
All right, and so after that, there was a review on Yelp. A woman who wrote, she said, "I was very excited to try out your place until I read a comment that you offer discounts to people who bring in their church bulletin. Please, not this practice. This is illegal." So after that, the Freedom from Religion Foundation threatened legal action. And Jason, that is where you got involved as the attorney. How serious could this be? I mean, do they have the power to then sue Justin's restaurant over this?
Well, unfortunately, anyone can sue, but in this particular case, Justin's not discriminating against anybody. He's just offering a discount to anyone that brings in a church bulletin. He's open it to any denomination, and he's not even requiring someone believe that what's in a bulletin, only that they present one. He also is allowing for anyone to bring in a civic or nonprofit newsletter. So if an atheist came in and presented a church bulletin or their newsletter, they would also receive a discount. So he's treating everyone the same.
Yeah, Justin, I mean, you said you're not an overly religious person, you're a Christian, but more than anything, this is just to boost business in a restaurant that recently opened. There are a number of churches in that area. What has the response been from people in your community? Are they upset about this? Do they feel like you need to bring it back?
The majority of the response has been positive. The only negative I've really had is from people who were upset with me for taking it down in the first place. The idea for us is to just be, the go-to diner for our community where they can gather for, fellowship and camaraderie.
Well, they can be. A lot of those folks can be happy because you're bringing it back this weekend, right? Tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow we will be 100% back in full swing, and we're expecting a large crowd.
Are you surprised?
Yeah, there's 12 churches within a mile radius of his diner, so he's just reaching out to the community.
Are you surprised, Justin, at the backlash? Are you surprised that this even happened to begin with?
I was taken off guard, I absolutely have to say, but I mean, ultimately I'm just trying to serve my community, and at the end of the day, my community consists of a dozen churches in a 1 mile radius. 2 of them are even non-English speaking churches, and I'm just trying to provide what my community demands.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to have a big crowd at your cafe tomorrow. Justin, Jason, good to have you with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All
have
right.
a great day.
You too. Coming up on the show, a memorial shattered honoring a fallen Navy SEAL hero, a lone survival fame. We're going to ask Dan Bongino next.
Grotesque lies about immigrants, about crime, about cost to the community. This administration's policy that literally ripped babies from the arms of their mothers and fathers. It's one of the darkest moments in our history. Not only is it a national shame, it tarnishes the very idea of America and diminishes our standing in the world.
Well, it looks like President Trump's dream opponent just might be, dusting off the old campaign speeches for 2020.
Right? That sounds like a campaign speech.
Sure looks like it.
Really
Well, let's bring in Dan Bongino, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service agent, and the host of the Dan Bongino Show. Okay, Dan, darkest moments in our nation's history with the zero-tolerance policy from Joe Biden.
Pete, you know what's really incredible about this speech? The spine on this guy to do this. is that this policy was in effect during the Biden and Obama years and was enforced even more grotesquely, to use his words. He starts that thing off by talking about a series of grotesque lies, and then doubly ironic, goes on to lie about what the policy is. You know, this is infuriating me because they just cannot be honest about it. This was a Flores consent decree, a court decree, which mandated we could not hold these children for more than 10 days. It's been in effect way before Donald Trump came into office. And even worse, Pete, Donald Trump signed an executive order asking his DOJ to challenge that policy. And it's the courts that said, hey, we can't. The policy's been in effect for a while.
Dan, let me jump in, because I was saying earlier in the show, I was in McAllen, Texas. That was the center created in 2014 because of the response to the surge coming across the border. It is the exact same facility that the Democrats and Vice President Biden's outraged about now. We see also the calls of so many Democrats to abolish ICE. Is it your belief that Vice President Biden is trying to lead now the bandwagon that is just going to say we've got to get rid of any illegal enforcement in this country?
Well, let me tell you something. That's a train to nowhere for the Democrat Party. That ends at a track in the middle of a desert somewhere, and it certainly isn't an electoral win. The American public has absolutely zero interest in a policy like that. He may be catering right now, Griff, Biden, but for his presidential run, that I'm sure he's going to do, he's going to engage in, to his radical base for donors, support, volunteers, whatever it may be. But that is not a policy that resonates outside of the coasts and some elitists in the media. That's an electoral loser.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. It looks like he is really gearing up for that run in 2020. On another note, though, another story that is making the rounds. Michael Cohen, of course, the former attorney of President Trump. Apparently there is a recording out there of a phone call that he had back before the election in 2016 where they're talking about paying off a former Playboy model and a relationship that she had with President Trump is what she's claiming. How serious is this, Dan?
Well, it's serious, Abby, but for all the wrong reasons. It's serious because Bob Mueller is the most powerful and dangerous person in America to the constitutional republic right now. Bob Mueller, I cannot be clearer on this. I've been researching this case now for 7 months. Bob Mueller is investigating Donald Trump. He is not investigating a crime. Unless this Playboy model is a czarina of Russia, Bob Mueller is clearly way off the rails from the intention of this investigation, which, by the way, if Russian collusion in American elections, Russian interference, great. Collusion, that's a nonsensical narrative. This will not move the needle on Donald Trump, though, one bit, because the most damaging political narratives are the ones that change some pre-existing notion. Donald Trump's been honest about who he is. This is not going to move the needle on him one bit, but it will move the needle on Bob Mueller as people realize what a witch hunt this is.
It is sort of crazy, though, that Michael Cohen would record it, right? Because isn't he the lawyer of all people you feel like you can trust in these moments? It would be your lawyer. So it does make you wonder what was going on and if he felt like he was going to have to use this recording at some point.
Well, at a minimum, I agree with you. That was deeply unethical. Now, New York is a one-party consent state, which is, I never liked that law, but meaning if there's two parties on a phone, him and Donald Trump, and obviously Cohen consented, he taped it, it's legal. But again, is it legal yet? Is it ethical? Really? You're talking to your lawyer? And he's recorded your conversations. What was he doing? And what else is out there with this guy recorded? I mean, if we all think about this, Abby. If we all had our personal conversations recorded, we'd all be a bit uncomfortable. I don't care if you're Mother Teresa.
Well, and Rudy Giuliani, the president's current lawyer, has said the recording actually exonerates the president, but we haven't heard it, and it remains to be seen. Another topic the president has talked a great deal about, of course, is the anthem kneelers in the NFL. Now, the NFL thought, or we all thought, maybe they had kind of sort of addressed it in the offseason by saying the team can be fined if there's kneelers or you can stay in the locker room. Then they went to their meetings where the Players Association took issue with that. Now the policy's on hold. No one knows what it'll really be. Well, Griff, the president took to Twitter, as he often does, and took issue with that.
He says the NFL national anthem debate is alive and well again. Can't believe it. Isn't it in contract that players must stand at attention, hand on heart? The $40 million commissioner must now make a stand. First time kneeling, out for the game. Second time for kneeling, out for the season. No pay. Now, Dan, I believe that's probably going to move the needle.
Well, you know, Donald Trump has a unique ability to put his finger on the pulse of American politics and sense what's really aggravating people. Why does this issue bother so many people? Pete, I know you're a sports fan. Griff, I know you like sports. Abby, you like sports. Everybody likes sports for one good reason. It gets us away from the chaotic political atmosphere, the problems in our lives. We wanted to sit down on Sunday and we could all agree as Americans the NFL was one of the primary ways to doing that. What did they do? They decided to politicize this. You want to be an activist for your cause? Great. In a free country like the United States, I have all the respect in the world for you for doing that, even when I disagree. Not on the field of play where we just want to go and watch a game. Trump knows this infuriates people. And by the way, the NFL, this is going to be taught in PR classes and MBA schools in the future and business schools as a way not to handle this problem. They could have cut this thing off 2 years ago.
Well, clearly.
And every opportunity to screw up, they took it.
Yeah, now we're back at the beginning again. Unbelievable.
And you think for $40 million, Dan, they might handle it a little better.
Yeah.
You think so?
Roger Goodell's going to earn his pay this season. Thank you very much.
Dan, good to see you this morning. Have a great weekend.
See you guys. Take care.
All right, to some other headlines we are following closely this morning. And on a serious note, the gunman caught on camera in a deadly parking lot. A shooting will not be charged. Florida's Pinellas County Sheriff citing the state's Stand Your Ground law, which gives people the right to defend themselves. The gunman says that he felt threatened after the victim pushed him to the ground during an argument over a handicapped parking space. And many of you have seen the movie Lone Survivor.
What are you thinking? I think we're about fixing into a pretty good gunfight.
It is a story about Lieutenant Michael Murphy's unit. He gave his life on that mountain in Afghanistan, earning him the Medal of Honor. Well, a 14-year-old boy is now facing charges for shattering his memorial in a New York park. But the Murphy family just wants to meet the team.
Michael was the type of person who would have wanted to take that man under his wing, express and explain to him the significance of his actions.
Well, the state of New York is paying to replace that memorial. Also coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, we are going to get reaction from Marcus Luttrell, who, of course, served alongside Lieutenant Murphy. It's an interview you don't want to miss. And former Director of Legislative Affairs Mark Short is trading the White House for a senior fellowship at the University of Virginia. But he may not be getting a warm welcome next month. 150 of his future colleagues and students signing a petition to keep him off the Charlottesville campus as the community prepares to mark the one-year anniversary of the white supremacist deadly attack. Nearly 2,000 signatures are on a separate petition.
It's absolutely absurd. I know Mark Short well, an honest and decent man. It's absurd.
Well, and on another note, a minor league baseball team is hosting Millennial Night, and surprise, millennials are outraged. The Montgomery Biscuits rolling out avocado burgers, selfie and nap stations, and participation ribbons during tonight's game. Participation ribbons, Pete loves those.
Showing up.
The idea is catching on in the minors. The West Michigan Whitecaps have a similar event planned for next week. Avocado burgers. I love it.
Here's your ribbon.
It's so good. All right, over to some weather with Rick.
Nap areas.
Napping station.
Napping stations. I can get on board with that one. I will take that one anytime. Guys, we have a lot going on in weather almost everywhere across the country. A few stories. One right here. Take a look at this heat. It's 84 degrees right now in Dallas. What time is it there? 5:40 in the morning. We have a few showers today across parts of Florida, but you see three different storms here that we're watching. One is some severe weather that's diving in across parts of Mississippi. One is a big line of storm with probably about 60-mile-an-hour winds or so cutting just through the North Atlanta area right now. And then you notice this moisture here across parts of the Outer Banks. That's a big storm for us today. Also, areas of the Four Corners, more monsoonal moisture coming in across parts of Arizona. All right, here's across the south. Take a look at this. This is what it's going to feel like this afternoon. Over 100 all the way through much of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, down across parts of the deep south. And then take a look at the moisture that's going to spread in across parts of the East Coast. This starts today. If you were thinking about getting outside this weekend, take a look at that. We're going to have some spots, probably about 8 to 10 inches of rain this coming week. So a really wet stretch starting all across from the Carolinas up throughout the Northeast.
That's fun.
Oh, boy. That is going to be fun.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks for the bad news.
Yes.
Have a good morning. You just made mine work.
Go take a nap, Rick.
With an avocado. All right, the left calling for violence escalating under President Trump.
Sam Bondi, shame on you! You created a crowd! And you push back on them!
Well, Byron Gork here to weigh in next.
Welcome back. You know, the attacks on the president for faked assassinations, for harm, is nothing new. If you remember, this occurred many times under a former president, George W. Bush's turn. And here to weigh in is Washington Examiner's Byron York, also a Fox News contributor. Byron, you and I have been talking to each other at D.C. Bureau in the Halls for years, and it does certainly strike a remembrance when we see the New Yorker cover, the latest example. You see President Trump falling on his face as he's come down the escalator, a reference to perhaps that announcement when he made his announcement to run for president. There's the cover coming down at Trump Tower. But we, of course, have seen countless episodes. If you remember Kathy Griffin's bloody head, all that. But this goes back to George W. Bush years, does it not? Welcome. Good morning.
It does. Good morning, Griff. It's not just a Donald Trump phenomenon, although feelings are incredibly intense about Donald Trump right now, but they were pretty intense about George W. Bush back in 2004, 5, and 6. There was a movie called Death of a President, which used computer graphics to place the real George Bush's face over an actor. He was assassinated as the president, and there were scenes from the presidential funeral. This movie was premiered at the Toronto Film Festival. It was reviewed in the New York Times, the Washington Post. It was kind of a mainstream thing. There was also a novel in 2004 that depicted some characters who were discussing assassinating George W. Bush. It too was reviewed in all of the respectable journals. And I do want to mention one more thing. There was a New York State official in 2006 who was giving a college commencement address, and as part of that address, he was praising Senator Charles Schumer. And his way of praising Senator Schumer was to call him, quote, the man who, how do I phrase this diplomatically, who will put a bullet between the president's eyes if he could get away with it. He later had to apologize for saying that.
So here's the question. What is it with the left's obsession with bringing harm to a Republican president?
Well, I think in this case, what we're seeing is an extension, this case meaning today with Donald Trump, it's kind of an extension of the desire to censor and to deplatform and to deny a place in society. That's what we saw with the harassment of Kirstjen Nielsen at a restaurant here in Washington, what we saw with the treatment of Sarah Huckabee Sanders at a restaurant in Lexington, Virginia. A sense that on the left that if you as a Trump supporter or Trump official are supporting these terrible policies, then you have no place in society. Not really a big step to advocate violence.
And do you feel like there was at least some line, even with the examples you cited under George W. Bush's term, that now we've sort of crossed a line that the left's not going to worry about even trying to remain remotely close to in their depictions of President Trump?
Well, I think there actually is still a line. I mean, if you look at the Kathy Griffin thing, that was pretty horrendous. But she actually suffered a lot of blowback from that. And by the way, after these incidents in the restaurants that I was talking about, it seems to have quieted down, because I do think there are a number of Democratic leaders who would like to win control of Congress this November and don't really want to be associated with that kind of stuff, because it does turn people off. Obviously, it turns Trump supporters off, it turns independents off, and it turns probably most Democrats who believe in civil behavior just in the public at large. So this is something that gets a lot of attention. It's featured in the media. We're talking about it now. But I do think there remains a line after which people are appalled.
And we're almost out of time. Very quickly, Byron, a disservice to our political discourse as we enter the midterms?
Oh, absolutely. And here again, all you have to do are look at Democratic politicians who do not want to be associated with this. They want to win on things like the economy and jobs.
All right. Byron York, Washington Examiner, thanks very much. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you, Griff.
All right. If you're always on the go, we've got some tech upgrades for you. Kurt, the cyber guy, is here with a smart bike and more. Look at that scooter. And Pete, don't fall. That's coming up next.
If you're always on the go, we've got you covered with the latest and greatest tech upgrades on 2 wheels.
Here to show us is Kurt, the cyber guy. You got cool stuff.
If I'm blinking, it means I'm getting smarter. No, that's actually a really cool helmet. Good morning to you. This is called the Lumos Smart Helmet, and if you're riding your bike, you sync it to an Apple Watch, and you can see a turn signal happening.
Yes.
It gets used to your gestures like that. It'll make a left turn, and then you shake it, and it will turn off. Great idea for safety, and it keeps people behind you aware of where you're going also.
Very good.
Just brilliant. This is a smart halo. This makes your not so smart bike very smart. It goes in the T-cross of the handlebars of a bike, and it will sound an alarm if somebody's stealing your bike, like just loud as all get out. And then also it helps you by guiding you to not take out your phone as you're riding a bike, and instead lets you know make a left turn or make a right turn if you're using navigation on a particular path, and it will let you know if phone calls are coming in and help you with
that. Would have been great when I was in college in West Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Honestly, you couldn't go a day without a bike getting stolen.
Right?
Yeah, this would have been really helpful.
They brought this from the UK. Take a look at that bike. That is the AM1. This is a Kickstarter dream come true. This sold out. It's so fast. And now
does it come with
start shipping.
it looks like
it comes with a rider. So it looks like a normal bike, but it also is power supplemented. So this will go up to 30 miles an hour, about 20-mile range, and so is the scooter. That scooter is the best scooter I have seen before. So it's called the U-Scooter Booster Plus, and that thing gives you about 20-mile range and goes about 22 miles an hour. Super high quality. We'll put all this stuff on the website at cyberguy.com.
Kurt, thank you so much. You make us feel like kids again.
Jump in.
More Fox and Friends when we come back.